I've known her only
hanging around with you guys.
I've never heard her play.
All right. Well, let's hear some stories. Why don't we begin? Let me ask each of you. If you can recall a particular place on Central Avenue, is there a particular place that has a distinctive memory for you?
Oh, me?
Any, all three of you.
Oh, well,
can you think of a particular, talk about a particular
okay,
place
it's
on
the
Central?
Dunbar Hotel.
Right
Yeah. Club Alabama.
Yeah.
That was the focal point. And because that was in the same block with the Dunbar Hotel, and the Dunbar Hotel was the block where everything happened. There's a part in my story where I describe the blessing of the fact that that hotel was located on the west side of the street, which meant when the sun came up in the east, that sidewalk was in full sunlight. But at noontime, that sidewalk had a shadow on it. And from then on, that was the greatest stage in the world. The hippest people in Los Angeles perform on that stage. I know because I was a kid then. And I used to go down there just to watch and listen to what they said.
Particular place you want to talk about?
Oh.
Club or place?
Well, the first place I want to talk, we arrived here at the Union Station, the Jimmy Lunsford band, and they had a parade for our band from the station down to the Dunbar Hotel.
Straight down Central Avenue.
And the thing about it is that it was the greatest black hotel in the world.
Yeah. Right.
There was nothing compared with the Dunbar Hotel. It was beautiful. I mean, the rooms were immaculate, and they had nothing. It was big time. You had a coffee shop right on the corner. You had a dining room right over here for the heavy eating and all of that. And Miss Nelson used to sit there in a wheelchair. You couldn't come in there unless you properly dressed. And I remembered it from that day, but what I remember most of all was I had come up 5 years going to school in Detroit, Michigan. And that's the coldest place in the world. And when I got here that morning, we had just come from Chicago, and it was 24 below. And when we got there to the Dunbar Hotel, the sun was shining, and I said, I'm going to make my home.
Yes.
And I did.
And we're thankful.
It's just 70 years now.
I've been hearing about Los Angeles since I was a very small little girl. My dad has been in the Navy and he's been keeping stationed down in Long Beach. And he would talk about all the sun shining in the wintertime. You know, you don't have to wear coats and all that stuff. And he said, Kitty, that's what he called me, down south here, the funny name. Kitty was my nickname. He said, I'm going to bring you to California. And that's all my two brothers and I heard. You see, my mother had died when I was 3. So my dad raised me and my 2 brothers. They wanted to put us in an orphanage. He said, no, these are my kids. I'm going to raise them. And he did. With the switch and the whole thing, you know. But we knew what to do. But anyway, my dad, he was my knight in shining armor. He was my everything. Because I knew, you know, I wouldn't do wrong too many times because I didn't want to get the switch. But hey, anything my dad said was gospel. Even until he used to promise me, he said, my other nickname was Frukum Blunkum. He said, Fruk, I'm going to bring you guys to California where it's hot in the wintertime. Oh, Dad, we have to be hot in the wintertime. He said, you'll see. And we did. when the war, just as the war was over, my dad had been in the First World War. And in fact, the ship that he was on, the USS Utah, is the first ship that the Japanese bombed and sank over in Pearl Harbor. And he said, I said, Daddy, how can it be out of the wintertime? You know, we're going around with union suits down. Oh, God. You know, with the flap in the back. But, you know, I had such a wonderful childhood. That's why I'm putting it on paper. Because I'm from Denison, Texas. 78 miles north of Dallas. And boy, oh boy, they beat my dad up. They accused him of stealing some paint in this paint store where he was working, but it was the white guy that did it. My dad wouldn't squeal on him. They put my dad on a freight train that night, but they brought him by my aunt's house so he could tell me goodbye. And I see my dad all beat up. He said, don't worry about me, Phil. And he was. My dad was gone for a year. I was a junior. My dad came back the year before I graduated. He said he'd be back, and he was. And that was my biggest prayer to all the year through to my dad and to God above. To bring my dad home. He's got to see me get this piece of paper. And he was there. And I'm still thankful. When I got to California, the sun was shining so bright I had to put all these clothes off. You know? I couldn't believe it, but I had to believe it because the clothes were laying on the back of the taxi. But anyway, I said to him, Daddy, you said it. He said, I told you. And that would be what he would say every time he'd tell us something, and it would come true. He said, I told you, Luke. I said, yeah, Dad, you sure did. And I'm so happy. Like I said, he was my everything. Even now, I still talk. I walk through the house and tell him, I say, okay, Dad, it's your baby girl. 84 years old, but I'm a baby girl.